happy Monday. I hope you all had a great weekend and that you're coming into your new week refreshed. I am just jumping on here to say I'm excited to share with you some voices of the Gen Z generation. I am just going to share with you some clips of some questions that I have asked them, and it's just exciting for me because I love to hear from their perspectives, how they feel, and the insights that they have when we are discussing relationships and how to develop them with the generation. I asked two questions: whether or not they feel that adults 40 plus listen to them, why or why not. And I also asked them for advice on how adults could listen to them better and build relationship with them. And so I'm excited to show you all what they have said and excited to offer some insight and feedback after. And I would love to hear from you all. Please, I'm going to say engagement word of the day. So when I say engagement word of the day, I mean just pop it in the chat, pop it on my social media, in the responses or the replies. Just say Gen Z. If you've watched it all the way through the end, you've gotten to this point, say Gen Z. I'm looking forward to hearing from you all, and I will see you in the next video.
What advice I would give to older adults on how to maintain and build a relationship? I definitely say realizing and comprehending that you're imperfect. As long as you communicate, have connection, have commitment to each other, it's going to flourish.
Okay. Hi. I believe the people who are 40 plus do listen to me sometimes because I think I have their respect and I have their trust. And I think it sometimes depends on the situation as well. However, sometimes when we as Gen Z, I guess, or millennials, but if we're talking about Gen Z, bring up new ideas and new content, it'll be probably an okay from them and there's no execution, or sometimes it could just be ignored. But like I said, it depends on the situation. Maybe more if it's talking about them, if it's talking about certain things of their, I don't know. It just depends on the certain situation. That is sometimes, if it's more agreeable for them, that's when they probably can listen. But sometimes it can be the opposite way when somebody like me or my age wants to contribute to something and it doesn't, like I said, it gets executed. So there you go.
I think adults who are 40 years and older do typically listen to me because they say I am a 28-year-old trapped in a 21-year-old. I don't know. Adults usually tend to say I have an older soul and I'm a lot more mature, so I think that's why they listen to me. I would say in terms of like advice, I would probably just give them general advice because it seems like sometimes older people feel like younger people can't have a say in certain things. So I would just say, like, my advice would be just to listen, to be honest, because everyone has something to say, you know? And I think sometimes we fall into the misconception of you're wiser with age, and I don't think that's necessarily true. Obviously, age comes with experience, meaning that, like, you are wiser on some situations in some instances, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're wiser, like, in general. So my advice would just be like to listen and just listen to what people say. Listen to understand, not listen to respond. So that's definitely something that I would say.
I would say it's like 50-50 if adults over 40 listen to me. It depends on like the I think it really depends on the subject. of course, your response. Because I mean, when you're younger, some of your responses are just going to show your youth. So some things that, you know, I mean, younger people are going to say, they're going to say, you know, when I was young, I thought like that. But in order to bridge that gap, I just think there has to be just more dialogue and just communication, and maybe just like a little more understanding. So I think once you get older, you kind of forget how rash you might have been when you were younger.
Okay, so do I believe that adults 40 years old or older listen to me when we're actually in communication? I would say yes and no. It really depends on the level, or I guess the detail of which we're communicating, if that makes sense, and the topic that we're communicating about, because a lot of people won't listen to what they don't want to hear about anyway. But then on top of that, if we're talking about something that they feel like they might have a good knowledge of, a younger person might not be able to provide them with like a new stimulus of idea or thought in their opinion. So I would say that more often than not, I would feel like they don't listen as much. But again, I would think it's kind of more case to case depending on the subject. My advice to help them start listening would just to remember that age doesn't necessarily equate with maturity. Same thing with experience doesn't always equate maturity. Although, and ideally it should, it might not, because there's a lot of people that have gone through the same trials in life and have done the same things and gotten the same outcome and still haven't overcome certain cycles that they've haven't been able to break. So my advice would just be to lower yourself and to actively practice humility to be able to learn as much as you think you might be able to teach someone. And that would build a positive relationship with everything. You know, communication leads to communion in relationship. So I feel like as long as the communication barriers are there, whether you understand or don't understand something, or have to get into greater detail, it's okay to ask questions to obtain greater detail. And, you know, never feel like you're at a point where you know it all, because that pride, as we know, comes before every fall.